Get home from school, turn on my TV. Who are these friends staring right back at me? Now that we're older, why don't you come over and go back in time with me? 90s babies nostalgia.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Jessica.
And this is 90s Babies Nostalgia. We're a couple of 90s babies, rewatch and sometimes watch for the first time. Entertainment, tween entertainment from the 2000s.
Except maybe not really this time, but as always, we are not sponsored by or affiliated with any of the production companies, actors, TV shows, films, anything we talk about. But if you want to give us money, we will happily take it. And this time we are joined by a very special guest. We read it one night.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Alison. I'm one half of We Read It One Night, which is excuse me, I just almost choked on my tea. So yeah. I am one half of We Read It One Night, which is a romance novel podcast that I do with my sister, and we read mostly romance novels, and we also occasionally do some movies which might appeal to the 90s babies folks, such as the cinematic masterpiece The Mummy 1999, which is a 90s movie. But yeah, I had Amanda over on my podcast, and I'm really excited to be here to talk to you guys today.
We talked about Santa porn. I just have to put that out there. It was Santa erotica. Like,
you know what? Listen, and it was delightful. So.
It was very illuminating, I will say. So, before we get into it, Alison, Jess, what have you been enjoying lately?
As always, music. But recently I went to a 16-year anniversary tour for The Main. And so as preparation, I listened to all their albums from beginning to end. And I just have to say, one, go do that with like your favorite or nostalgic artists. Like, listen to all the albums from beginning to end, because you will forget that some of the albums that you don't listen to all the time slap. And so what I have been enjoying is Pioneer by The Main, which is their 2011 album. And it is amazing. I went to this concert like a month ago, and I still have been listening to that album like consistently because it's so good. What have you been enjoying?
The Main was actually my first concert. I just wanted to say I saw it them in Good Charlotte at Six Flags.
Oh my god, how random. Cute! When?
Oh god,
it sounds very like 2011.
Like I was like middle school age.
Okay,
but it was like a whole pop punk like festival.
Fun. Very up my alley.
Yes, it was delightful, and I got to go to Six Flags, which I always liked. But I am watching the show White Collar, which is about an FBI agent. I know it's about cops, but like they break a lot of laws, so it's okay. It's about an FBI agent and a former con man who like team up to solve crimes.
I love where like corrupt cops are acceptable.
Like, I mean, he's not actually the FBI agent. His whole personality trait is that he doesn't want to be a corrupt cop, but like he keeps doing things that are not legal for good. Anyway, it's very delightful, and it's like has each episode is a kind of like a heist-esque kind of thing, and I really enjoy it. And it stars Matt Bomer, who is a gay icon.
I was gonna ask, is this the Matt Bomer show? Because I was
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Older show. Yeah,
I'm watching it with my mom, and we're on season 6, which only has 6 episodes. And I discovered that is because they were going to cancel it after season 5, but then they decided to give them like a short season to like wrap up the storylines, which I really appreciated because season 5 ended on a cliffhanger.
I love that. I hate when they just cancel after a cliffhanger. Like, give them a little time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Nice. I saw Saltburn recently. Have you seen Saltburn, Alison? I know Jess has it.
No, but I've seen clips. Mm-hmm. I've seen clips of it.
The infamous one going around Twitter. which I'm off right now because I have to disengage from my hyperfixation on Love Island. But no, I saw Saltburn the other day, and all I knew going into it was the bathtub scene. And I was so down. Like, my friend was like, I've heard this movie's weird. You like weird shit. Let's go together. And we had an incredible time. I did not feel a moment of peace the whole time I was in the theater. No one in the theater felt a moment of peace. Like, I was so physically tensed up. And there were screams and laughter. And it was like, you never knew where it was going to go. Which I very much appreciated. The acting was great. I've never understood the Jacob Elordi hype until this movie because that's beautiful, stunning. So many beautiful shots of his face and body.
And him in a bathtub.
Yes, and him in a bathtub. And I'd say the movie, I described it to a friend as like, it's like putting together a puzzle, but you didn't get to see the box beforehand.
My nightmare.
But I enjoyed it, so I recommend it if you guys like weird cinema. And with that said, a much more standard format of cinema where you know exactly where it's gonna go. We are getting into a Hallmark movie today.
Yeah, so we watched Holiday Heritage, which is the 2022 Hallmark movie. It was released December 16th of last year. For those that don't know, I'm going to give a little Hallmark history. But of course, we know Hallmark for their very traditional storylines. And in 2020, Bill Abbott, who is the CEO of Crown Media, was left, but also was kind of ousted. And so he was replaced with Wanya Lucas, who really came in. She's leaving this year now, sadly, at the end of this season. But she came in and really diversified Hallmark content, made sure there was more diverse stories. So one Holiday Heritage is one of those that we'll be talking about today. It follows a Christmas storyline, but also heavily incorporates Kwanzaa, and has a primarily all-Black cast. So it was definitely a big change for Hallmark, but the story is still very Hallmark. The whole time you're like, oh yeah, this is Hallmark.
Yeah. I didn't know that was why they finally started doing gay characters and people of color and Jewish. That's fun. Oh,
I gave
yay.
it to him.
I forget what you said her name was, but yay, new.
Yeah,
leader of Hallmark.
Wanya. Yeah.
Wanya.
So, yeah. Bill, basically 2020, when everything summer 2020, everything came to a head, people started criticizing Hallmark. And so Crown Media was like, bye-bye, Bill Abbott, you need to get the hell out of here. And then that's why in the last couple years, they've done a lot more they did, I think last year or the year before, their first ever LGBTQ movie where the gay characters are the main characters. They have, put in the randoms gay uncle and things like this.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, Wanya has brought a lot of change, and I hope that stays.
And that's where we got the scandal of Candace Cameron Bure. Didn't she signed an exclusive deal with Crown Media, I think? Because she was
yeah, but I think she's left now, right? Because she was mad that they did a gay one, and now she's gone onto. I mean, if Hallmark Channel is for C-list actors, she went to somewhere for F-list actors.
Right, not Crown Media, GAC. I think she followed the old Hallmark guy.
Yeah, the old Hallmark guy owns a company called GAC, and their whole thing is we're pursuing relentlessly family-friendly media. And so she followed him to there and is only doing Christian-friendly films. Whatever that.
To focus on traditional family values.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
I would just like to point out
Candace?
That everyone here is queer and has trans family members.
Yes.
We are all very opposed. And we chose this film specifically because we wanted a Kwanzaa film. So we're happy with the direction Hallmark's going in. I'm not a big Hallmark person. You two are both Hallmark people. So I might take a little bit of a backseat, but I'm pleased.
Yeah.
I get a yearly subscription to this thing called Friendly, which gives me access to the Hallmark channel, and we do it for like a month, and then that's it.
Yeah. I normally just watch it when I go home, but my parents are like crazy. They have to watch every single one. They
Don't
like,
they have like an app to review it?
yeah, they have a checklist. They have an app to review it. They'll rewatch their
So
favorite
funny.
ones. It's like really intense to a point that like I almost think it's gotten out of hand, I would argue.
That's amazing. I love that. Are they big Lacey Chabert fans? That's why I wasn't upset about Candace leaving, because I was like, Lacey Chabert is my girl.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Lacey Chabert, and what's the one guy? He'll come to me. But there's a guy that I really like too.
Oh, the guys all blend together for me. They don't really stand out.
Yeah, the white
Fair.
guys all look the same.
It's
They look
fair.
the same.
I mean, it's no lies here. Getting into our characters, I may not go into like what films and stuff these people have done, because a lot of them are like Hallmark Lifetime actors. So really the
Mhm.
bulk of their work is Hallmark and Lifetime. But we have Lindy Greenwood, who plays our main character, Ella, who is a graphic designer that lives in Boston but is going home for the holidays. She was in Sleepy Hollow, though. I did want to point that out. Then we have Micah, who's played by Holly Robinson Peete, which is a huge Hallmark name in a bunch of Hallmark movies, but also played Officer Judy Hoffs in 21 Jump Street, and was on an episode of the remake or the reboot of The Proud Family.
And Micah is Ella's mom, who still lives in their hometown and works with their grandma.
Yeah, at the family bakery, which is necessary in all.
Literally, I this whole film, I was like, this is checking every Hallmark box that I didn't know I had.
Yeah. Then we get Tess Chappell, who is Ella's grandma, Micah's mom. She's very traditional, and she is like, the main person at the bakery as well. Her husband just recently passed. She's in a bunch of Hallmark. Then we have, and Lifetime. Then we have our main, leading man, Griffin, played by Brooks Darnell. He is the mayor of Marystown, Pennsylvania, which is their hometown, and also the ex of our leading lady, Ella.
And he was in 5 episodes of Shadowhunters, which I thought was hilarious.
Who did he
played
play?
A character named Charlie, who I don't think was in the books.
I don't know. I only watched season 1, so
he was in season 3. I'm surprised you
Okay.
watched season 1.
I watched it with my college friends. Like, we had weekly viewings.
Got it.
And
That
we were
checks
a little
out.
bit drunk when we did that.
That checks out. But I think he signed an exclusive deal with Hallmark for a while too.
Oh, really?
When I Googled him, that's what I saw. Okay, jumping into our summary. And I'm going to do this probably fast. We open up in Boston, Massachusetts, where Ella is at her company holiday party, where we learn that she has a real corporate job that allows them to have the week between Christmas and New Year's off. And she wants to open up her own graphic design studio in Boston. Then she's at home watching a video of her grandpa being like, the holidays are about the family and keeping the family together. And Ella, you're going to be the one to do that when I'm gone. He's dead, by the way. And he passed last year, the year before. Anyway, I don't know why he's putting this pressure on her to keep the family together, but whatever. Then she's on a phone call with her mom, and her mom's like, I'm moving to Chicago. Your grandma and I can't stand each other. And she's like, Ma. And then she goes home.
Yeah, but also
My
she's
mom.
Go for it.
No, it's just that my mom was so offended that she was moving to Chicago, because my mom was like, why would you move to Chicago when you could move to Florida where it's warm?
Did you watch this with your mom?
Yeah.
Love that. No, I was just, okay, I'll get it. I have this note later, but I don't think Chicago is ever explained.
Chicago is never explained, but also I feel like I personally would pick Chicago over Florida.
My mom is very into retiring to Florida. Which, like, Micah is not retiring, so I don't know why this was, like, so offensive to him, but, like, there was much commentary throughout the entire movie where he was like, why would you go to Chicago? You could go somewhere warm.
I will also state for the record, we have a PA expert in the pod today, so I look forward to that commentary because Alison is from Pennsylvania. So
okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't do any research on if this town actually exists, but
I don't
next in
think
our
so.
plot, you don't think so?
It looked like a strip mall. Anyway,
It was filmed in Ottawa, although it did look like a lot. Oh, there's a St. Mary's, Pennsylvania,
makes
but not a
sense.
Marystown. No, it looked a lot like Pennsyltucky mountain towns, but it was filmed in Canada. At first, I was like, I think I've been there actually, because they all look the same.
Same.
I literally thought it just looked like any strip mall on the West Coast that they just put snow on. But
No.
Fair.
They do film during the summer, and I did feel very bad for these actors who were very clearly wearing turtlenecks in like 90-degree weather.
Yeah. Well, normally if you watch like past Hallmark stuff, the outfits never make sense for the weather, and that is something that they have like changed. So they were wearing like big, thick winter coats, and I'm sure they were sweating. But Ella goes home, and we are in Marystown, Pennsylvania. We see Micah and Tess, grandma and mom, fighting at the bakery. And Ella's kind of upset. She's like, Mom, you should have told me that you were fighting and that tensions have gotten worse. Like, why'd you keep me out of the loop? And she doesn't want her mom to move to Chicago without settling things with her grandma.
Well, at first, she doesn't want her to move at all. Like,
yeah, that's
she's
true.
like, no, absolutely do not leave your hometown, 50-year-old woman.
Even though she left.
Yeah. Then they go Christmas tree shopping because apparently Tess hasn't gotten one yet. And there's a scene where she's redesigning the logo of the bakery. Basically, Tess doesn't like anything new. No new baked goods, no new logo. And then while they're, I don't know why those were interspersed, but in our summary, it was like Christmas tree shopping, logo, Christmas tree shopping. But anyway, while at the Christmas tree farm, they run into Griffin, who is the mayor. We learn he's the mayor. The grandpa used to be the mayor. And also, Ella broke his heart when she moved to Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Classic.
Then we see them the next day, and Ella and Micah are like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun decorating the Christmas tree. And they're sharing stories about the grandpa and how he embodied the principles of Kwanzaa and Christmas, and just really like talking about him because normally the grandma doesn't like to talk about him since his passing. And Ella's like, can you just test out Chicago? Like, go for a couple months, see if you like it, but don't move there. And she's like, no, like, I want to move on. I need to change. I'm not testing a city out. That's not happening. Then Ella's like, you know what's going to save the family and keep my mom from moving to Chicago? Kwanzaa. And you know what I need in order to celebrate Kwanzaa? I need Grandpa's Kwanzaa scrapbook. Don't really know how that's helping, but that's what we need. And so she meets up with Griffin to get the Kwanzaa scrapbook from him.
Mm-hmm. We see them at the tree lighting where Ella's asking him for help and talking about her family. And then he's randomly putting up Tessa's Christmas lights. I don't know how he got the bin with her lights in it. And he's doing this without her permission. What if she can't afford the electricity bill? And they share a heart-to-heart about Grandpa Riley.
I will say that there was something a little bit incestuous about Griffin being so much a part of this family, not only because of the Freudian aspects of like him replacing the father figure grandpa as mayor, but also because in that scene the grandma's like, he thought of you like a son. And I was like,
yes,
well,
yes,
that means he's her uncle. Is he like...
I felt that too. I did not like that. This scene made me a little uncomfy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and those themes kind of continue throughout the movie as well. we get more Grandma Tess and Micah just having tensions. There's a bake-off, and Micah's like, I made these cranberry brie things. And Grandma's like, we only make things that have been passed down generation over generation.
And we learn there's a rival bakery, which really doesn't serve the plot much at all.
I thought
but
it was
there's-
hilarious, though.
Yeah.
They needed to like throw in some sort of additional tension.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
going through, they meet up for milkshakes, and Griffin and Ella are going through the Kwanzaa scrapbook. And inside the Kwanzaa scrapbook is this little like scratch piece of paper that's written on with the idea of Kwanzaa candies. And the idea was that at the festival at the end of the year, they would hand out all these candies, and they would have the 7 principles of Kwanzaa on it. And based on what candy you got, that's the principle you were going to focus on that year. And so Ella's like, I have this fantastic idea. We're going to do that, but with cookies. And Grandma and Mom can bake the cookies and all decorate them. And it will force them to solve all their problems, and it will make it so Mom does not move to Chicago.
And they don't want to do it until Griffin is like, well, we can have the other bakery do it. They offered. And then they're like, if anyone's going to do this recipe from our dead, deceased grandfather, it's us. Back off.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ella and Griffin go to a very fancy restaurant that I did not expect in this small town, where they're like in full proper formal wear, to talk about their relationship and discuss the fact that he was going to propose to her the day that she said she was leaving for Boston. And she's like, I wanted you to come with me. And he's like, you didn't ask. And she's like, you didn't offer. And I realized that they suck at communication. Classic.
But also, if a man proposed to me without us ever talking about it, I'd just reject him on principle. I'd be like, no, like, we cannot.
Well, also like her shock when she's like, we never discussed that. I'm like, I'm glad they included that, because yeah, if you're not discussing marriage but then proposing, that's a problem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
With all of the Chapel family ladies, after that conversation with Griffin where they're like, we are going to have open and honest communication, Ella's like, Mom, that's what you need to have with Grandma Tess. You need to just be open and honest with her. Otherwise, if you just leave, she'll think that you left because you were mad at her, which is kind of why she's leaving.
Yeah.
Griffin shows up on Christmas Eve, and he shows up to kind of help Ella convince them to celebrate Kwanzaa. They're like, this is what Grandpa Riley would want. We're not just going to do the Karamo festival. We need to do all 7 days and celebrate all the principles. And after some hesitancy, they agree. They pull out the candles. They get them all set up. And we get this like cute little montage of them celebrating the different days of Kwanzaa.
And I'd like to point out that at this point, we do not know that Griffin was an orphan. And when he shows up on Christmas Eve, I went, does this man not have a family? Does he have nowhere to
No.
go? He's there on Christmas Eve. He's there on Christmas Day. And then they celebrate all of Kwanzaa. But then we do learn that he was an orphan. So, you know.
Naturally, you're not allowed to have a non-orphan character in a Hallmark movie. It's just ridiculous.
No, dead parents is a plot device. It creates character. I know.
Usually dead
I've
mom,
used it in
though,
my
so
own
this was a twist because we had dead grandpa and unknown fate of father.
Oh, true. I never even thought about her dad.
Yeah.
Not once did I spare a thought for Ella's dad.
Oh, I thought about it.
I thought about it, but Micah, there's a line where Micah's like, I had you really young. And so I just assumed it was like she was like an accident or something, and like they weren't really like in a serious relationship, and she just decided to have the baby, and like he's not in the picture or whatever.
I did think that line was interesting and unnecessary. But
There are some interesting
okay.
choices in this movie that I'll talk
100%.
about when we're done.
Yeah.
The summary.
During their Kwanzaa celebrations, there's a day where they go to a school to talk about their purpose, and they all share, and Micah drops the ball that she's leaving for Chicago to find her purpose, and Tess is like, what the fuck? And so both Tess and Micah are mad and decide that they're not going to the festival anymore. And Micah's like packing, like she's ready to go to Chicago now.
In her tiny little carry-on suitcase. I'm like, girl, we're moving to another city. Is that all you're bringing?
Literally. And while she's packing, Ella's still like, Mom, you can't leave. And they talk about how Micah feels like Tess and Ella are all she has. And maybe if she's honest with Tess, she'll lose Tess because she'll be mad at her or some shit. So instead, she's running away.
And there is a line here, back to my mom telling Micah to go to Florida. Micah's like, or Ella's like, it gets cold in Chicago, you know. And my mom was like, you know where it doesn't get cold? Florida.
Well, also they live in PA. Like, what are you telling me? It gets cold in Chicago. It gets cold in Pennsylvania too.
Yeah, there's literally snow on the ground this entire movie. It's like
it never stops snowing, yet it never builds up.
Yeah.
No, that's impossible.
We get a scene where they are in the bakery and Ella and Grandma Tess realize, oh shit, we forgot about the thousands of Kwanzaa cookies that we need to make to be ready by tomorrow.
Literally 1,000 cookies.
So they bring in Micah, they call Griffin. Griffin brings in everyone from the town, including the Strand Bakery, which is the rival bakery, and they all work together to get the cookies done.
It is not everyone from the town. He brings in the bakery.
Everyone that we've seen. Anyone with a speaking line.
Everyone with a line. Yeah. So it's
anyone
the
with a
rival
name
bakery
character.
and the two friends that we have not mentioned because they really don't matter, and their daughter. So it's really that. Also,
and what is it? Donna, the bakery worker. She helps out at the bakery. Is that her name, Donna?
I didn't catch her name, but shout out Donna. Arlene. Those are very different names.
No, Darlene. Maybe.
Oh, maybe. It began with a D. That's all I'm sure about.
Shout out to the other bakery worker because she called them on their shit on the sidelines all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Also just weird to me that Griffin's best friend is married to Ella's best friend. Like, I don't know.
It's a small town. Amanda, come on. It's a small town. The dating pool is limited. There's already incestuous stuff going on here. Like, there aren't very many options.
I get it. I'm asking for too much. So after this big baking session, Ella decides to sit Micah and Tess down and watch a video of Grandpa, the same one that she was watching at the beginning of the film, and tells them that, Grandpa would just want you to talk to each other, no judgment. And so they talk to each other and they have a little heart to heart and say that what he really meant by keeping us close isn't keeping us here, but keeping us here. And if you can't see me do the gestures, well, I was thinking about if you were watching this film and you were blind, you would not know exactly what you would know from I guess, inflection. Anyway, not about keeping them in Marystown, but keeping them in their hearts.
Correct.
So,
I will say that Ella very conveniently edits out the part where Grandpa gives her the responsibility of keeping the family together. I was like, what does this mean?
Right after she said that it was a little edited.
What was left out? What is this propaganda?
Then we see them all decide that they are going to go to the Karamo Festival. Griffin invites them on stage because everything he learned about Kwanzaa is from Grandpa Riley. So they're all on stage. They're passing out the cookies. They're feasting together. They're dancing. They're having a good time. There's a giant fireworks show. Don't know if I guess it happens on the 31st. So I don't know if that's like traditional with Kwanzaa or if they're just blending Kwanzaa with New Year's Eve.
The last day of Kwanzaa is January 1st.
It's January 1st.
It's always the 26th of December to the 1st of January. So it's a week after Christmas. Yeah.
I still thought fireworks were an interesting choice because I was like, is this...
There's got to be fireworks.
Okay.
It's a Hallmark movie. Come on.
Okay. The next morning, we see Ella show the new logo that she designed to Grandma Tess, and we kind of see her start to come around to new ideas. She's like, oh, I love it, but actually, can you bring in some brighter colors and make it red? She shares she didn't sign the lease in Boston for her graphic design studio, and instead, she's moving home. And then she talks to Griffin and is like, if I stay in Boston, Boston doesn't have you, so I have to come home because you're here. And
was so cute. I'm gonna be honest. I don't have a you in Boston was so cute. I was like, that's a good line.
I was so mad at this conversation because she's like, I've been in Boston all these years and I don't have anyone. And I'm like, girl, you've been there 2 years.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years.
I get it. Listen, as someone who left a large city, I get it. You know after 2 years whether you want to stay there.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
They agree to date and to, figure out what they want to do next. And it starts snowing because of course it does. And they kiss. And then we get kind of a celebration and a cheers around the table for the final day of Kwanzaa. And that is our movie.
And it ends. I'm sorry. I know it's not funny, and this is probably like a very like traditional part of Kwanzaa, but
No,
they
go for
end
it, go
with
for it. I
saying
know what you're gonna
Harambe.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
end. They're like Haram. It's like a toast in Swahili. But
Mhm.
I was like, oh no! Like the memes are coming back.
That's one of my notes because I didn't know that Harambe was a Swahili term, and apparently it means like communal labor. It's like a we work for each other kind of thing. And I definitely Googled it and found threads being like, I'm sorry, you can't tell me it means anything other than dicks out.
All I picture, I just had a vivid mental image of like one of those like 90s photo shoots that someone had made with Harambe, the gorilla, where it's like he's like faded on the edges and like there's like 2 pictures, like very vivid at the end of this movie. I was like, what a closing image.
And the fact that like this is from 2022. So the Harambe memes are like well past and they're very aware. But I do appreciate that they kept the cultural accuracy despite it, knowing that people like us were going to watch this movie.
And I also like, speaking of that, like I like in general, this movie felt very much like it was meant for people that already knew about Kwanzaa. Like I learned about Kwanzaa, but it wasn't like, there wasn't any like, let's sit down and explain all this stuff, which I've encountered in other Hallmark movies and the like that like try to do different like non-Anglo-Saxon like waspy things.
Yeah, I really liked it because I learned about Kwanzaa briefly in school, but I did not remember anything about it other than it is specifically a Black American holiday and that it was like 7-ish days. I knew there was the candlesticks and stuff, but I really did not learn much about it, did not know much about it. And watching this, I felt like it was accessible. I understood it. And I really liked it. It's a really nice like holiday on principle. Also, did you know the guy that invented Kwanzaa is still alive?
That makes sense. I knew it was invented recently. It's because it's not religious at all. Like it's very much like a cultural holiday. Yeah,
it was invented in 1966 by a Black separatist who is currently 82 and a chairman for Africana Studies at UCS Long Beach.
Wow. Those weren't the right letters, CSU, but we'll take it.
CSU. I haven't lived in California in a long time. Yeah, it was invented in 66, and originally it was because he's on the train of like Jesus was insane, and Christmas is a white holiday. That's a whole Wikipedia article about the sanity of Jesus.
I know. I've read it. I've read the Wikipedia.
Yeah, I'm sure you have as someone with religious trauma, but
as an evangelical.
Yeah. But so originally he was like, Christmas is a white holiday and this is an alternative for y'all. And then a few years later he was like, no, it's not an alternative. You can do it together, whatever. Which like
he's
fair.
Like, listen, I get it. I get that you like the trees and you like the presents. It's cute. Fine. We'll do both. Yeah. I will say, just while we're at the end of the movie, just one more. My mom trying to get Micah to move to Florida. Is that Ella and Micah are having a conversation, and Ella says among a monologue, she's like, you need to go where your sun shines brightest. And my mom pauses the movie, turns to me, and is like, what have I been saying this whole time? The sun shines bright in Florida.
Oh my god.
was really going all the way to the end. He was like,
Yeah.
please, please go to Miami. Don't go to Chicago.
Isn't Florida the Sunshine State? Or is that California? I always got
Yes, it is.
confused.
No. Florida is the Sunshine State.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that it has going for it.
I'm glad you said that they filmed this in summer because I was like, how fucking cold would it be to be in the traditional outfits that they wore during the festival?
Mm.
Like, they're out there in their traditional African garb, but like everyone else is in coats and it's snowing.
Yeah. Well, even the family, even like the Chapel family, they're in their traditional garb, but like their traditional garb is like long sleeves and like has like layering, whereas like there's dancers at the end who are in like strapless mini dresses, basically. And you're like, oh my God, like these people are gonna get frostbite.
Yeah, because there's snow on the ground the entire time.
Yeah.
All of my comments were just very silly ones. In the fact that this family is bakers, but we see them, there's time Ella's like measuring cranberries into a cup measure and they're just spilling everywhere. And I'm like, that's not accurate measuring. You have no idea how many cranberries you just poured in there. Why did you even bother? And there was like multiple scenes like that where I'm like, are you guys bakers or are you just winging it? Because I don't trust that these recipes are turning out.
Here's the thing. I didn't think of this while I was watching, but I just thought of it as I listened to you. They're baking traditional family recipes. And as someone who has a grandma who has a lot of like traditional Serbian recipes, like they're not like American, so like I can only get them from her. And every time she leaves out something important or like but because she claims she doesn't do it on purpose. That's a debated topic. But it's because she doesn't go by recipes. Like she goes by vibes a lot of the time of like, yeah, you just throw in like a whatever. So I'm just saying if you're baking the recipes that have been passed down, a lot of it is just this seems like enough cranberries.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll say Jess and I are both like we love to bake, Jess even more so, and I think we're much more like baking is a science. But I did recently talk to one of my coworkers who's this lovely Filipino woman who was like, "Yeah, I'm really good at baking cakes. I don't need a recipe. I know what everything does." And she was just like, "Yeah, you just throw this and this and this," and was talking about how like her family would wake her up at like 7 in the morning being like, "Mom, can we have a cake?" And she'd be like, "Fine."
Sure.
The anxiety of that, yes, because Amanda's right. I'm very much like baking is a science, but I do understand your struggle because when my grandma passed, I got a lot of her recipes, not necessarily baking recipe. Well, some of them are. And a lot of it is like, you can add this only if you have it, but if you don't have it, leave it out. And like, sometimes I put this, but sometimes I don't. And I'm like, this is not a recipe. Like, I don't know how to follow this. Like, I'm lost.
It doesn't help that my grandma also, like, because she's Serbian, the recipes are not only unintelligible in general, but are also in another language, which I can speak but cannot read.
Yeah, it's fair.
And maybe she's leaving it out on purpose.
No, I feel like she's like, she's like, I want me to be the one who can make these the best.
She needs to be needed.
Yeah. Aww.
The other thing that comes up, which is just like screaming Hallmark to me so loud, is we have the classic like real versus traditional Christmas tree debate when they're getting the grandma's Christmas tree and they go to the Christmas tree farm to get a real Christmas tree. And the mom's kind of called out like, well, she got a fake one. And like, I just have to say, like, a fake one is no mess. And it's like a one-time purchase that lasts so long that I just like don't personally. I'm like, I think do whatever makes you happy around the holidays and brings you joy in your home. But like, I don't know why we're still shaming fake Christmas trees.
I completely agree. I'm very much like I've never had a real Christmas tree in my house. And like when I was a kid and brainwashed by hegemonic culture, I was like, Mom, why don't we have a real tree? Like, we're not really celebrating Christmas. Now I'm like, no, fuck that. Also, just like real Christmas trees are so wasteful. You just kill the tree and you throw them away. Although there is like a I don't know where it is, but I have heard of farms that you basically like rent the tree for 5 years. So like they replant it after, like they give it to you in a pot of soil and then they
That's so
replant it.
cool.
And then after 5 years, like when it's become too big, they put it in like a forest and then like you get a new young tree.
Yeah.
That's so
So I
fucking
like
cool.
those. Yeah.
What we did growing up is we would always do a living Christmas tree, so still in a pot. And then my grandma lived on like acres of land in the middle of nowhere, California. So once we were done with it, we would just bring it to her property. And so like over the years, you could be like, oh, that's our Christmas tree like 7 years ago. That was a Christmas tree 3 years ago,
What?
like based
Oh my
on the
God.
size.
Today I learned you can replant Christmas trees. I did not know that, and now I'm obsessed with this because
Well,
I agree with you, Jess, about like, and Allison, no fake Christmas tree slander, but I do love a real Christmas tree. Like I love the way that it smells and the way that it looks, and I love decorating them. I will probably not have one as long as I have a cat, because when I brought her home for Christmas and they had a real tree, she did eat the pine needles, and those can perforate your stomach. So there's
Of
that.
course you did.
But I do
You
love
got
a
to
real
spray
one.
it with like cat. We spray our tree with like cat detract. There's like stuff that you're supposed to use for training, and like we just douse it in it so that they don't go anywhere near it.
Cat repellent really doesn't do much for her. She's a monster. So she has
Yeah.
her own tiny fake tree that I have to bring out today, actually, and she likes to attack it. She's looking at me right now like a
So
wackadoodle.
I feel the need to clarify it's a living Christmas tree. So if you get the like regular Christmas trees that have already been chopped down, that
Yes.
you cannot replant that. But you can buy ones that are in the pots that are currently alive, and you just put the Christmas tree skirt around the pot, and then you just still have to like continue to water it while it's in your house, and then you go and plant it, because it's just like getting a house plant and replanting
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I guess I
Yeah.
just didn't realize you could contain the roots in a pot and like accurately
Oh.
scoop it up and keep enough roots and stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think, yeah. I'm
Okay.
sure like you got to be careful about replanting it, but especially because it's only there, excuse me, for like a month. So like it's not like you're keeping this in your house for a year.
Yeah, I don't think that would really work.
No, I don't think the tree would enjoy that at all.
No. The other where Hallmark makes everything Christmas is the like casual grocery store. The baskets are red and green, and I'm like, no grocery store is getting
Do
new
they?
baskets for the Christmas season.
I did
Yeah,
not
they-
clock
amazing.
that.
Oh, that was the first thing I
didn't
noticed.
notice that.
And it was like
I
whatever person on set did the set design made sure that they were stacked. So it was like a red basket, a green basket, a red basket, a green basket.
amazing.
And I was like, no one
I
is
love
doing
that.
this.
I love that attention to detail though. That makes my little autistic heart happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did notice, however, on the opposite side, is that while they did commit to like the winter coat and the turtlenecks and like the general aesthetic, they strayed away from making the outfits as Christmassy as they usually do. For example, in the first scene, Ella's like at home and she's watching the video of her grandpa. She's wearing a cardigan, but it's like a tiger striped cardigan instead of like a festive red. And I was just like, this is a choice. I personally really don't like animal print, so it also really like stood out to me. There was a lot of animal print in this movie, and I really didn't enjoy that costuming choice. I was like, no more.
I
did not
personally,
notice.
yeah, I was like, I did not clock the excessive usage of animal print, but
Everyone had at least one animal print outfit throughout the movie. On the same theme of like switching. I mean, obviously, this is not like the quote unquote traditional Hallmark movie, just like right off the bat, like you know that going in. But I would say, like in general, the vibes were different. Even like, I don't know, like I feel like part of the things that make Hallmark Christmas movies enjoyable for me is that I feel like most of the time they understand that they are making a bad movie. Like they understand that they're just a little silly and like they're just for like drinking hot cocoa and like watching on a cold night and turning your brain off.
yeah.
I felt like this movie, because it deals so hard with like intergenerational trauma and like grief and these really serious topics, that it like took itself a little bit too seriously sometimes. I was like, I feel like you need to throw in like I don't know, something silly here. I feel like they need to go like sledding to like resolve their like family trauma. Like you're having them talk it out and like that's important, but
or like a snowman building contest or something.
Yeah. I was like, this is way too healthy. This is like way too realistic. Like
yeah. Well, I also liked, which I know Hallmark has been doing more in the last couple years, but most of the ones that like when I go home, just the ones that are on TV are still more of the traditional Hallmark, like it's about the story of, you know, the boy and the girl and they fall in love and oh my god. But I liked that this one, yes, there was a little bit of that, but like I think all of us were underwhelmed with that plot line because it was a little underdeveloped, because really the focus was like the family and dealing with grief and how to celebrate this cultural holiday when the grandpa was gone and like all of these things. And I kind of liked that it focused on something other than just love.
I did too. I really liked that the romance was completely secondary.
Yeah.
I will be as the romance fan here.
Yeah.
I always like when the romance is
front and center
first. And I could monologue for hours that I won't do to you about just like our perception of romance and like how I think it's okay that you can not like romance, like you can like want that to be secondary plot and that's great and that's fine. But I think that there is like a very fine line of like being like there's too much romance in movies and like misogyny. I won't give you my thesis on that.
I agree.
But if you listen to my podcast, I've done it a lot. So.
I like romance in movies and I like a romantic Hallmark movie, but it was refreshing to me to have this like 3 generations of women being the point.
No, yeah, I definitely like I thought that was refreshing and it was nice. I would have liked the romance to be a little bit more, but like I was like, I like this family. I like that we have this very like matriarchal story, which is also like very different because Hallmark, I feel like, is very usually patriarchal more. Speaking of the patriarchal, I thought it was really interesting. So there is a common, Jess, I don't know whether you have your own name for this guy, but there's a common in Hallmark Christmas movies. There's what like my family calls the Christmas magic man, like the guy, the old man who like might be Santa, like, you know what I mean? Like he's just like there in the background. He's like this fun old man. He may have magic powers, whatever.
Yeah.
And I thought the grandpa filled that role. And I thought it was interesting that A, it wasn't like a random stranger like it usually is. And B, that he was dead. He was like Christmas magic man from the grave.
Yeah, that is very true. Yes, because normally, especially, I know one of these actors is in the Christmas and Evergreen series, and that whole series of Hallmark movies, which is like a very popular, if you're into Hallmark, you've definitely seen the Christmas and Evergreens. That's a huge plot, is it is kind of like fantastical and they have that Christmas magic man. But yeah, I do think the grandpa fills that role.
It kind of annoyed me. Like, I get the trauma and the death and stuff, but it did kind of annoy me that it was about 3 generations of women and it felt like it was supposed to be matriarchal, but it was ultimately patriarchal because it was all about the grandfather's traditions and how they fell apart without him. Like, you're telling me 3 women can't figure their shit out on their own without having to watch a video of a dead guy telling them to love each other?
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
It's fair. Listen, mothers and daughters, it's the complex relationships, and sometimes in an hour and a half movie, you need a 30-second video to wrap that up because you can't have them go to therapy.
But speaking of like the family issues, can we talk about how unfair it is that Ella wants her mom to stay there? And also, I thought, very cool plot point, that a woman in her like 50s gets to go chase her dreams because you're never too old to do that. But like, is it not fucked up that the whole time she's like, Mom, you can't leave?
Yeah.
Well, I think part of it is clearly we see that like she left and she kind of, I'm not going to say regretted, but like she definitely didn't find what she was looking for in Boston and is now ready to move back home. And so maybe she's like, oh, I don't want you to make that same decision that I made. Also, like, it's not like you needed to go to Boston to figure that out on your own. Your mom also needs to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
So you think she was projecting?
I do.
I agree.
I just thought she was being annoying.
I mean, I think
He was
there's a
definitely being
little
annoying.
bit. Yeah. Yeah.
It was definitely both.
Yeah.
But she called the movie specifically, like Micah specifically will call her out multiple times, and Griffin does it too, of like, you're so obsessed with your mom staying. I feel like it's very explicitly said that she's projecting by like multiple characters.
Yeah.
Oh, I was researching the hair trade while I was watching this movie, so maybe I didn't catch that.
The hair trade?
Oh, we learned some really fun facts.
What?
Because something I liked about this film is that with the 3 generations of women, we get 3 different black hairstyles. We get the short shave, we get the braids, and then we get the like loose curls. And because Micah has braids, and another influencer I've been obsessed with lately has braids, and she posted on her stories about them recently and about how she always gets human hair. And then I was like, wait a second, braids are so long, and if it's human hair, and how many people have braids, and how many people have extensions, and where do people get the human hair? And like I went all into this rabbit hole. Yeah, I read 3 articles about it while I was watching this movie and taking notes.
I need to just so you know, because Amanda shared this with me and I was shocked. A huge chunk of wigs that are made with human hair are literally women who collect comb hair, and then women have to sit in a factory and detangle the clumps of comb hair to form a wig.
It's sort them by length, and they have to process them to remove the like cuticle, because if they're not all chopped from the same direction, they won't be facing the same direction. Yeah.
Aren't a lot of them also I never fact checked this, but I definitely saw like a video about it. Pubic hair, isn't that like a really common
That
source?
wasn't something that came up in my
But I definitely like seen a video, and then people were grossed out, and I was like, it's cleaned. Like,
interesting. I would see that maybe more for shorter wigs or toupees.
Yeah. I've donated my hair a few times, usually to like a cancer charity or whatever. Like wigs for kids. But I wonder, because they sell a lot of the excess hair that they get, or if it's like too short or whatever. So like I wonder how much of my hair is actually in like some person's like hair extension.
Yeah, I also think it would be crazy to have hair extension. I would just be thinking about like how this was on someone else's head at one point. We're very tangential. That's fine. I learned that it's a heavily unregulated industry, and it's really hard to know if your hair is ethically sourced or not. And if you know for sure, then it's way more expensive.
That checks out. I mean, human,
like everything,
human things that comes from humans. Makes a lot of sense.
But on the note of the hairstyles and stuff, it was really obviously like I'm whiter than a polar ice cap, and even me watching this movie, it was surreal to see like what felt like a very classic Hallmark film just with an all black cast. I found it really refreshing because it just kept ticking all the boxes, but I'm just not used to seeing an all black cast doing that kind of a film where, yes, they're celebrating Kwanzaa, but it's not really about that. Like, it's still a Hallmark film about family and the relationships and stuff. I don't know. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. There's only one speaking character who's white, or at least I assume she's white. She could be like light skinned,
she's white
Latina
passing
or something. The friend, she's white passing, but her husband and daughter are both I assume like Middle Eastern is what.
Yeah, they call him Brown
based on his name.
Yeah, I will say I had a hard time imagining that this is a small town in Pennsylvania with this many black people celebrating Kwanzaa.
That's true.
And like the other rival bakery is also only black women.
Yeah.
And I get that there's definitely populations of black people throughout the Northeast because of like slave trade things, but rural Pennsylvania?
I agree. Location, I was confused about. I'm like, this just doesn't seem plausible.
Yeah. No, the one thing that I did think is that Philadelphia is a very like black city. Like it is like a very much like a black community hub in the Northeast. And so I mean, listen, I think like objectively across the board, unreal, like probably not very realistic for for like Pennsylvania, like that's what we call the middle of the state. But I like at least it was in a state that is more known, like is more black, has a higher like black community.
Like at
than
least it's not
perhaps
actual Kentucky.
you're right, it's not actual Kentucky or like Boston, you know what it, like a suburb of Boston, you know what I mean? If it was in like
Boston has
Massachusetts,
a large black community because that's where the Underground Railroad ended or went through.
Oh yeah, yeah. I guess like it's not like Vermont, you know.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I feel like I would have
Maine.
more difficulty believing. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was a choice. The only reason I think it was such a choice is because Pennsylvania was entirely like arbitrary. Like they really didn't need to be from there. But
no, they could have been from anywhere.
Why? And listen, it's a far drive. She drives from Boston to this town in Pennsylvania, and that's a long ass drive. Why is she driving instead of flying? Is what I want to know.
That's what, like 10 hours?
Yeah, that's a long drive to make by yourself in presumably one day.
Yeah.
As someone who's driven from Nashville to Pennsylvania, that's a 16-hour drive in one day.
No.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough, buddy.
I did 7 to 8 hours between New York and Maine, and that was fun. It's a good time. And by good time, I mean rough on my back.
Yeah. My personal max is like 5. I'll do 6 if I have to, but I prefer 5 hours in a day if you're doing a long drive.
You don't get a choice going from the Bay Area to LA. Sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 6.
Yeah, it should be 4.5, but it can take up to 7, which is just BS.
Horrible.
I have a question for y'all. We talked about the incestuous part of this. Does Griffin actually love Ella, or does he just love her family because they raised him? Because this plot was giving Little Women to me.
Oh, at least she doesn't have a younger sister.
True.
I feel like there's a little bit of him wanting to be in her family, but also we have that he didn't, once Ella left, he didn't check up on them as much. Like that's like a little thing at the beginning that like he hasn't really seen them in a bit, which implies that like after the grandpa died, the reason that he, like the only reason he would have had to like keep up a relationship would have been Ella. I don't know. There is that. So he definitely likes her at least a little bit. And not just her family.
He does say Tess that, or tells Tess that he likes her more than the other residents of Marystown. Do they ever mention having anything in common at all, or is it really? No. I'm pretty sure it's just like we used to be in love. Also, they have no chemistry.
Yeah. They were both very attractive people, and they were both very sexless.
Yeah, their chemistry is very like on par for Hallmark films. So like I definitely have watched Hallmark movies where the chemistry is way worse. So to me, I was like, this is semi-believable, so I'll take it.
The really good ones are the ones where they have chemistry, because these movies are like you get one kiss at the end and that's it.
Yeah.
Like the ones where like you could tell these actors want to jump each other's bones, but they can't because they're good Christian boys and girls. Like top tier.
Yeah, we love the suspense. We had none of that here. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just because that wasn't the point of the story, but it was a little weird to me.
One of my favorite quotes is Renee, who we didn't mention, that she's like the friend of Ella's, the only speaking characters that we get outside of the main characters. They're doing some Christmas Eve shopping and they run into Griffin, and she is trying to allow Ella and Griffin to have a little alone time. So she's like, I'm just going to go in here. And they're like, the hardware store? She's like, yeah, Jonah needs some nails, which I just like really enjoyed.
I have never
Mhm.
needed nails ever, and I have put lots of things up on my wall. When you buy a pack of nails, you get so many nails.
Yeah. Yeah. It just made me laugh.
I missed that it was the hardware store, so she said that, and I was like, she's going to get like fake nails? Like, is she going to get her nail? Is she going to
She's
get
getting
acrylics?
acrylics.
Like, what's going on?
Jonah likes a woman with her nails done.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen.
We also get a scene where they're all like passing around. It's in one of the Kwanzaa scenes. They're like sitting around a table eating dinner, and they're passing like the dishes of different things.
Mm.
And this is like a side line, like it was in the background. But one of them is like passing the greens to Grandma Tess, and they're like, "Get the lady her greens," and it just it really made me smile.
Sounds like an
Yeah.
ad-lib.
Yeah,
That's what I was saying. I was like, this is the most natural part of the movie, like acting wise.
Yeah, a lot of those scenes felt like the most natural, and then the like scenes that they focused on the most, you were like, "Ooh, I can tell that this is a Hallmark film." In traditional Hallmark film fashion, we get this line from Ella, which I don't know if I loved it, but I wrote it down because it was notable to me because it just felt very Hallmark, is, "I don't regret following my heart, but I do regret breaking yours," which I'm like, oh my God, dramatic.
There were a
Such a-
number of those cheesy ass lines in this, and I also wrote them down for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. The I don't regret leaving, but I regret breaking your heart is such like a classic second. This is the official trope name for this is second chance romance.
Mm.
And that's a very like a variation of that line. Is
Mm.
definitely very popular in contemporary second chance romance.
I really, and speaking of the second chance romance, the first line that I enjoyed was when they first run into Griffin and they're at like the Christmas tree farm, and Ella has an awkward encounter with him, and Micah says, "That'll get easier." And then Tess, who is like not in the shot at all, just walks by to go, "Maybe."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised that there wasn't, because she's a big city gal going back to her hometown, that there wasn't a big city boyfriend. But I guess it's because the romance wasn't front and center. Because usually there's a big city boyfriend that she like semi emotionally cheats on the entire movie until they
Yeah.
break up, and then she
Yeah.
gets with the small town boy.
They needed to give her absolutely zero reason to leave or to stay in Boston. We don't even see that she doesn't like Boston. It's just as soon as she gets back to Marystown, she's like, "Oh my God, why did I ever leave?"
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought she had a boyfriend actually for the first 20 minutes because she's talking to that guy at the holiday party and he introduces her to his mom, and I like assumed that was her boyfriend introducing her to his mom, and I was like, his mom's nice. What's the reason we're going to get that she has to break up with him for her small town beau?
Wait, speaking of that holiday party, sorry, this was not, I forgot to add this to the notes. How do y'all feel about a family holiday party? Because personally, I've never seen one, never want to. Sounds awful.
I would say most company holiday parties, you get a +1 or you can bring your whole
Yeah.
family. That's like a standard.
Yeah.
I
Had someone at our holiday party. This is not one that I went to because it was in the middle of the pandemic, but someone brought their dad, and apparently he was a hit, and he brought weed, and they all like smoked in the backyard, and he was like
At
a
the
delight.
holiday party?
The holiday party for my former team goes hard. See, if you're not hungover the next day, you didn't do it right.
Okay.
This is not a an official corporate holiday party.
Yes.
This is a holiday
Yes,
party
that's true.
hosted by her former boss at her own home for their
Yes,
small
yes.
team.
Yes.
So,
And weed is legal in New York. Just
yes.
putting that out there.
I've never been to a corporate holiday party, really. So maybe there's that. I just don't think people should be required to bring their families. It's weird. And I don't want to meet people's moms and dads.
Yeah, I think bringing moms and dads is weird. I feel like normally it's like boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands,
Yeah.
wives, that sort of scenario, maybe children.
Yeah.
Moms and dads is strange.
Yeah. I agree.
I have 2 other cheesy ass quotes, but Allison, did you write any down? And it's okay to say no.
I already said my quotes. Most of them had to do with Florida, but and incest, which is also Florida themed.
True. I have the 2 that were like very Hallmarky that Jess did not write down.
No, that last one really, it got me that you spent the time to write that down, because I was like, this is cheesy as fucking hell.
I had to
Too
because
much.
they were halfway through it and I paused to write it down because it was so much. So first,
a
when
lot.
we're learning about Griffin being an orphan, he says, the community took care of me and they lived in me and they died in me and they gave me my purpose.
Yeah.
I missed that. That's really weird, Griffin.
It is strange.
It was, but I was like, wait, why does this kind of eat? Like, it's so they
Also,
lived in
it's
me and they
giving
died in me.
mayor.
Like, I'm sorry, what? I
He
didn't know if he
really
was
takes
talking.
being mayor seriously.
Wait, was he talking about the community or his parents? Both. I don't know. I'm here for it. I hate it all at once.
Mhm.
It made me think of the Lion King, the part of the song where they're like, "He lives in you, he lives in me." That part.
Mhm.
The other one that Jess cannot believe that I wrote down that we touched on a bit, it was related to your Florida comment, is Ella tells Griffin that she's staying in Marystown or coming back to Marystown and how she thought she had to move to Boston to follow her dreams. And she says, your dreams can grow wherever you feel the sun shining on your face brightest, wherever it's watered, wherever your roots are the deepest.
It's so cheesy.
So cheesy. It's
But aren't your roots going to be the deepest where you're from no matter what? And then that means you don't
well,
move?
that's the point. Don't move to the big. The message of every Hallmark Christmas movie is do not move to the big city.
Yeah.
Stay
It will
in your
crush
hometown.
all of your dreams.
Never leave your hometown with the population of 1,500 people.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't be me. Our hometown has 1 million people, and that was too small for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
Okay, can't relate to that.
Do we have any final thoughts?
I want to know from both of you, because you're the Hallmark experts, how this matched up to your expectations, because I don't think either of you had seen it before.
Mm-mm.
Well, again, the ones that I watch tend to be more focused on the romance versus I haven't watched a lot of the ones from last year and this year that are more like family centered. So I would say in terms of Hallmark movies, it maybe is not my favorite. But in terms of Hallmark diversifying, I really appreciated that we got a plot following like 3 women. I thought it was good.
Yeah, me too. And I think I said earlier, like, this wasn't really like a Hallmark movie. It was a Hallmark like movie. Like, it wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't like a Hallmark movie all caps. It was like
Yeah.
a Hallmark movie lowercase.
Yeah,
And
totally.
also my taste in Hallmark movies generally like veers towards, I really like the royal ones. I've watched like every single one of the like A Prince for Christmas variation. And my family usually picks like the ones that sound the wackiest. So the ones with like time travel or like she's becomes a lighthouse keeper and has to rescue a man from the sea. Like the weirder the better.
Yeah.
So this one was pretty normal.
That's fair. That's fair.
I've never seen a non-holiday Hallmark movie before, and that little plot that you just surmised was
Oh no,
ridiculous.
those are
that-
holiday ones.
Yeah.
That's still a holiday one. No,
Yeah.
no. There's actually this one on Netflix. It's not I don't think it's Hallmark, but it's basically like this woman buys a house and then there's a ghost in there that's like the former owner of the house from like the 1800s, and he was murdered and like he only appears every Christmas. Like it's actually delightful. It's actually phenomenal. Like it's like really
and
delightful.
it's called?
I think it's called the like 12 Ghosts of Christmas or something. Or the
Okay.
Spirit of Christmas.
But yeah,
Something.
this
Something like
was
that.
this was on Hallmark, but Hallmark has a whole set of Christmas movies and non-Christmas movies that are on
Mm.
Hallmark Movies and Mysteries, and that's where you get
Mhm.
the weirder plots that you are describing are normally the
Yeah.
Movies and Mysteries one, where you're like, whoa, who wrote this? Like,
Like,
it's a
what the
little
fuck?
wacky.
Yeah.
There's so much I
Yeah.
didn't know. And I also want to say we planned this episode before the strike officially ended because we decided Hallmark was a gray area because when you look and you look and you try to figure out what their distribution and production and all of that is like, it truly ends up being owned by the Hallmark card company.
Yep.
Yep.
Which is not something I
That's
expected
lovely.
because that's like a family-owned company still. Like, I really thought there would be like some larger conglomerate that owned them, but no.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
It's delightful.
Yeah, pleasantly
I
surprised.
love
Makes
that.
me like what they do even more, although I am very terrified by everything that you guys have said in the last 2 minutes.
Give them a
Listen,
try.
you just
Mhm.
you dial back the brain activity a
Mhm.
little bit, and you get some tea or a hot cocoa, and you sit on the couch, and
Mhm.
you prepare for delight
Mhm.
and patriarchy.
Mhm. Speaking of fun Christmas movies, but very, very different. Next week we watched DCOM from 2000, Ultimate Christmas Present. Amanda and I really, really, really enjoyed that movie. So it's going to be a very, very fun episode. Excited for you guys to listen. As always, you can follow us on all of our socials, 90s Babies Nostalgia. Spell out the word 90s for Instagram and YouTube. But on TikTok, use numbers because we like to keep it confusing. Give us 5 stars, rate and review, rate our podcast. Also, go give our lovely guest a listen and check out her podcast if you want to shout out your socials as well.
Yeah, we are at We Read It One Night on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, at We Read It Podcast because of character limits on Twitter. But yeah, thankfully no one else had We Read It One Night as a handle on most social media. So we're the same everywhere if you want to follow us. Our
It's
TikTok is not romance. My sister runs our TikTok and she does whatever the fuck she wants, and she has a lot of fans. But so if you're not interested in romance, but you're interested in seeing my sister's face, that's our TikTok.
the podcast is very fun and similar to us, but books and chaotic. And when is the episode that I'm on coming out?
Next week, which is what, the 19th. Our episode is coming out the 19th, and it'll be the last episode of the year.
The
Woohoo.
19th of December, which is shortly after
We talk
this one is
about gay
coming out.
Santa porn and
Mhm.
het Santa porn.
Yes.
And
If
it's
you're
instinctually magical. That's why, like, Amanda, I don't know why you're like freaked out by those Hallmark plots that we're talking about, because like that was the Santa. One Santa is an alien who lives in an alternate dimension.
What?
So
that is true. Yes.
like I
And his jizz smells like candy canes.
I forgot about that.
Oh.
And I'm so delighted that you reminded me.
Yeah. His
Well,
jizz smells like peppermint. So if you're into that, go listen
yeah.
to my episode on We Read It One
And
Night.
gay Santa is two hot women and they just fuck with a lot of sex toys for the
Lesbian
entire
Santa.
book.
Yes.
And we get like diversity Christmas because they have the Magi who give presents to the brown kids. Like Santa's for the white kids, and then the 3 Magi give them to the brown kids.
Oh,
They
interesting.
divide the labor.
Mhm. It's
Okay.
a good time. I enjoyed it. Thank you for pushing me outside of my comfort zone.
You're welcome. She wanted to do like you wanted to do Haley Kiyoko's book, like
No,
sapphic
well-
YA, but it got taken. It was already claimed by someone else.
I said preferably sapphic. I can do the straights if I have to, but I'm down to be weird because you were like, will you read monster porn? Because sometimes that's what you do. So I was like, yeah,
Sometimes it's
if it's going to be straight, the weirder the better. And you know what? I was not disappointed. We got something sapphic and we got Alien Santa with Peppermint Jizz.
Yes. Listen, be thankful I didn't make you read the erotic door romance. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
do mean door. I do mean like a door. DOOR.
If that sounds interesting to you, go check it out. Listen to
Anyway.
our full podcast on the 15th, and 4 days later, go check out that one. And as always, we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Baby's nostalgia.